When Karoline Leavitt walked onto the Fox News set, no one expected the tears, the silence, or the Vatican seal. What was meant to be a routine political interview turned into a moment that shook millions, as she revealed a personal promise made to Pope Francis himself. In her trembling hands, a sealed letter, a rosary that should have been buried, and a truth too dangerous to stay hidden. Live on air, she exposed not only a conspiracy inside the church, but a warning that could change how we see faith, power, and silence forever. Before we unfold this emotional story, comment where you're watching from, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss the truths they want buried. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend. Karoline Leavitt had planned it weeks in advance, a simple return to her roots, to the white farmhouse nestled on the outskirts of Atkinson, New Hampshire, where the air still smelled of pine and hay, and where memories clung to the old porch swing like the morning mist. She needed it. The Washington grind had been relentless. Endless press briefings, harassment on social media, fake headlines twisting her words, late-night threats, whispers in the White House halls. She could handle the noise, she always had, but something deeper had been weighing on her heart. Something she hadn't dared to speak aloud. It had been 9 days since Pope Francis passed away, and 9 nights of her waking up with a start, her chest pounding, the echo of his voice in her dreams. Karoline, when I am gone, you must be the one. Those words had become her torment, a quiet whisper buried under layers of duty. She didn't know what they meant, not really, not yet. But she knew they were burning a hole through the silence. And then the box arrived. It was waiting for her, right there on her grandmother's porch, beside the rocking chair that hadn't moved in 3 years, not since her grandmother passed. No footsteps in the snow, no tire tracks on the long gravel drive, just the box. It was made of dark olive wood, warm to the touch. A delicate brass latch kept it shut, and etched across the lid in gold leaf, only one thing. John 8:32, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Karoline froze. It was the same verse her grandmother used to whisper when she was scared as a child, during storms, after nightmares, on the night her parents nearly divorced. Her hands trembled as she lifted the latch. Inside, she found 3 things. A Vatican-sealed envelope with the unmistakable red wax crest of the papal office. A worn silver rosary, identical to the one her grandmother was buried with. A photograph she had never seen before. Herself, no older than 7, standing outside St. Anne's Church, smiling shyly. A priest's hand rested on her shoulder. She felt her breath catch, because she remembered that day. Her grandmother had taken her to light a candle for her sick mother. But the priest in the photograph. She had never remembered him being there. She searched the back of the photo. No date, no writing. Just a watermark in the lower corner. Archivio Segreto Vaticano. Her heart dropped. What was a secret Vatican archive photo of her doing in this box? For the next 2 hours, Karoline didn't move. She sat on the porch, hands clenched, snowflakes swirling gently around her. The box rested on her lap like a sleeping animal, warm, alive, dangerous. She thought of calling someone, her husband, a staffer, a priest, but she couldn't, because deep down, she already knew what it meant. This was the box Pope Francis had told her about. And now, he was gone. Flashback 2 years earlier. Rome had been a blur. Karoline had traveled with the Trump delegation to discuss religious freedom in Europe, a trip meant to be symbolic, diplomatic, ceremonial. Her role was minimal. She was expected to smile, shake hands, deliver talking points. But on the 3rd evening, a knock came to her hotel suite. Not from security, not from press. From a man in a long black cassock, silent, eyes ancient. He held out an envelope. Inside, only one sentence written in elegant black ink. Meet me at midnight, Casa Santa Marta, come alone. Francis. She had stared at the note, heart thudding, unsure if it was a joke. It wasn't. At 11:50 p.m., a plain black car pulled up. No flashing lights, no escort. Just the old man from earlier, now holding the car door open. The Vatican by moonlight was surreal. Empty corridors, marble steps that had seen centuries of secrets. And then, at the end of a hallway lit by flickering sconces, a small wooden door opened. Pope Francis stood alone. His white cassock was draped like a burden over his shoulders. His eyes were tired, but when he looked up at her, they lit with something else, something like hope. Karoline, he said in perfect English. "Thank you for coming." They sat. He poured tea. She didn't know what to expect. He didn't speak about politics. He spoke about darkness. "There are those," he said, "who wear the robes of the church but do not serve the church. They hunger for power, not God, and the children suffer." Her throat tightened. He continued, "I have fought them, but they are many. One voice cannot save the church, but perhaps a voice outside the church might shake the earth." He slid a wooden box toward her, not the one that appeared in New Hampshire, a smaller one. "When I am gone," he said, "another box will come to you." She tried to speak, but he gently raised a hand. "It will find you, not by the hands of men, but by the faith of saints." She asked why her? He answered with a soft smile, "Because you believe in truth, even when truth costs everything." And then he placed his hand on hers. "Promise me, you will not let it be buried with me." She nodded, and then he said no more. Back to the present, New Hampshire porch, present day. Karoline felt the weight of her promise like an anchor. She lifted the silver rosary from the box. It was her grandmother's. She knew it. The chain's bend, the slight chip on the crucifix. But it had been buried. She remembered placing it in her grandmother's hands herself. She fell to her knees. The snow soaked her jeans. Her breath steamed. The wind whipped around her, but all she could hear was his voice again. "When I am gone, you must be the one." Tears ran hot down her cheeks. She clutched the rosary, the envelope, the photo, and she whispered the words that would change everything. "Okay, I'll do it." She barely slept that night. The box remained on the nightstand of her childhood bedroom, its presence pressing into her consciousness like a heartbeat she couldn't silence. Every creak of the floor, every gust of wind rattling the window pane reminded her of what she now carried. Not just secrets, but a burden. A cross passed, not from pulpit to pulpit, but from one soul to another. Karoline sat up in bed, holding the photo in her hands, studying the grainy image again. Her younger self smiled in innocence, but behind her, the priest. He looked out of place. His hand on her shoulder looked gentle at first glance, but the more she stared, the more it felt posed, calculated. She turned the photo over again. The watermark stared back at her. Archivio Segreto Vaticano, the Vatican Secret Archives. She whispered into the silence, "What were you trying to show me, Holy Father?" The next morning, she called no one, not the president, not her press team, not even her husband. She knew the minute she shared the box's contents, it would no longer be hers to carry. She needed clarity. She needed church, not a service, not scripture, just silence. So she drove through the old roads of Atkinson to the chapel her grandmother had taken her to as a child, St. Anne's. The old stone building stood frozen in time, its steeple wrapped in ivy, its windows still showcasing the saints in soft hues of blue and gold. She stepped inside. It was empty. The only sound was the soft hum of wind pressing against stained glass. She walked to the altar, and for the first time in years, she knelt, not as the youngest White House press secretary, not as a national figure, just as a granddaughter, a daughter, a girl with questions. She held the rosary and closed her eyes. "God, I don't know what to do, but I know you see what I can't. If this is from you, show me where to go next. If it isn't, then take this weight from me." Silence, until the faintest creak of a pew behind her. She turned, heart racing. No one was there, but something small sat in the pew. An envelope. Plain, white, her name on it. Karoline stared at it for a long time before picking it up. Her hands shook. Inside was a single line. "He chose you because you do not belong to them." No signature, no return address. She ran to the entrance, opened the doors. The parking lot was empty, the snow undisturbed. The next 48 hours unraveled quickly. Anonymous notes began appearing in her life. One in her car, one tucked into her coat pocket, one left inside her baby's diaper bag. Each carried a variation of the same warning. "Keep the box sealed. Do not betray the Vatican. You are being watched." And then came the phone call. She was in her kitchen, preparing a bottle for her infant son, when her cell phone buzzed with an unknown number. She answered, No one spoke. Then a voice, male, calm, unaccented. Miss Leavitt, some truths are too heavy for the public. Some saints die because they refuse to keep secrets. Are you a saint, Karoline? She slammed the phone down. Her hands were trembling. Her son began to cry. She rushed to him, cradled him, whispering, "You're safe. You're safe." But in her heart, she was no longer sure. She met with her pastor, a man she had known since childhood, a man who had prayed over her mother in her final days. She showed him the photo, the rosary. She didn't show him the envelope. He looked at the items, then at her. Karoline, sometimes the burden of truth doesn't come with answers. It comes with consequences. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unknow what God puts in your hands. The question is, do you have the strength to carry it? She looked down at her hands. "He chose me," she whispered, "but I don't know why." Her pastor leaned forward. Maybe it wasn't just him. Maybe God did. That night, her son fell asleep early. She stood by his crib, staring at his tiny chest, rising and falling. She pulled out the sealed envelope again. She turned it over in her hands, feeling the weight of the wax. Then she heard it. Not in her ears, in her soul. A memory, not of the Pope, but of her grandmother, rocking her as a child. When God gives you the torch, little one, don't be afraid of the fire, just carry it. Karoline knew what she had to do. She called Fox News and scheduled a live appearance. The day of the broadcast arrived bitter and gray. The skies above New York were heavy with snow clouds, and as Karoline stepped out of the black car, a gust of icy wind whipped against her coat, nearly taking her breath away. But she didn't flinch. In her hands, she carried the box. She hadn't let it out of her sight since returning from New Hampshire. It hadn't left her nightstand, hadn't been touched by anyone but her. The box didn't just carry wood and wax. It carried a promise, one forged in Rome and sealed in her soul. Inside the Fox studio, the lights burned brighter than she remembered. It wasn't her first time on national television, but this time was different. This time, she wasn't there to talk policy or defend a political point. This time, she was walking onto a battlefield. The crew greeted her with polite smiles. Makeup was quick, mic check faster. No one asked questions. Everyone assumed she was here to defend the administration's economic proposal, a safe, structured, 5-minute sound bite. No one knew what she had in her bag. Not even Sean Hannity. She sat across from him under the bright glare of the cameras. They counted down. 5, 4. She took a breath. 3, 2, 1. The red light blinked. And America was watching. "Welcome back to the show," Hannity opened with his usual calm energy. Joining us tonight is White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. Karoline, welcome back. She offered a small nod. "Thank you, Sean." He continued, "Let's get right to it. The president's latest economic proposal is drawing attention from both sides of the aisle, but I understand you've brought something with you today." Karoline didn't answer immediately. Her gaze dropped to the table in front of her. Slowly, purposefully, she lifted the olive wood box and placed it between them. The camera zoomed in. The gold lettering on the lid glimmered under the studio lights, John 8:32, and the truth shall set you free. Hannity raised an eyebrow. "Karoline, what is that?" Her voice was quiet but steady. "This is why I'm here tonight. Not politics, not policy." She met his eyes. "This box was given to me by Pope Francis. He asked me to open it only after his death and to share its contents with the world." The studio fell into silence. Sean blinked. His posture changed. The smile slipped from his face. "Wait, you're telling me that Pope Francis gave you that box, personally?" Karoline nodded. "Yes, 2 years ago, in Rome." She reached into her jacket and pulled out the red sealed envelope. The camera caught its detail, the wax crest still unbroken. Gasps were audible from behind the cameras. Someone off-screen murmured, "That can't be real." But Karoline continued. "He told me the time would come, and that I'd know it. And when I saw his funeral on the news, I knew." Hannity leaned forward, stunned. "Karoline, are you saying this is a message from the Pope, meant for the world?" She opened the box. Inside sat the envelope, the rosary, and the photo. She pulled the rosary out, holding it gently. This belonged to my grandmother. It was buried with her, but somehow it was in the box. Sean didn't speak. Karoline placed the rosary on the table, her fingers trembling. This is not just about the church. This is about truth, about corruption, about something hidden for decades. She lifted the envelope. I made a promise to a dying man, a man who led billions, and I intend to keep it. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. She looked down. A new message. No name, no number. Just one line. Stop now or he won't wake up. She froze. Sean noticed. Karoline? She turned the phone and showed the camera. The message glowed. A murmur went through the studio. The audience watching at home erupted on social media. She took a breath. My son is safe. God will protect him. But if I don't speak now, I'll never forgive myself. With trembling fingers, she picked up a small letter opener. The blade was old, engraved with a cross. It had belonged to her grandmother. The seal broke with a quiet crack. Karoline opened the envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper. She unfolded it. Her voice, steady but full of emotion, read aloud. To the one who carries light in the dark. The church I love is breaking, not from the outside, but from within. The wolves wear mitres. The innocent are silenced. The gold blinds those meant to serve. I have tried. I have failed. You must speak. When the time comes, reveal the name. S. Naman. They will try to erase you. Let them try. Truth is not protected by man. It is protected by God. Francis. Gasps erupted. Sean Hannity looked stunned. S. Naman? Karoline reached into the box again. This time, she pulled out a flash drive. This was hidden beneath the lining. It was sent separately to my apartment. No return address, no explanation. She handed it to the producer. Seconds later, the studio screen lit up. Grainy black and white video played. 4 men in robes, faces half shadowed. Whispers, we control the silence. Leavitt won't speak. The old man trusted the wrong girl. The video cut. The room was dead silent. Karoline looked into the camera. I was that girl, but I'm not silent anymore. The camera cut to black. Not from the network, but from something else. The studio lights flickered. One of the overhead fixtures let out a loud pop, shattering into sparks. A gasp swept through the control room as technicians rushed to switch power sources. On air, there was a delay. Dead silence. Sean Hannity glanced nervously at the producer. We're still live, came a voice from the booth. Karoline didn't move. She was calm now, as if something had taken hold inside her. They're watching, she said quietly. I expected that. A staffer rushed toward the set with a phone in his hand. They're flooding the studio's inbox, some demanding we stop, some offering prayers. Karoline nodded. That's the difference between fear and faith. One silences, the other speaks. The next video clip loaded. This time, the footage wasn't from inside the Vatican. It was from a small chapel in southern Italy. Candlelit. Empty pews. A lone man in white kneeling before an altar. A voice narrating in Latin. Then translated captions appearing beneath. He trusted her. He should not have. The woman from America will undo what centuries built. Prepare the Black Mass. The screen cut again. Karoline looked directly into the camera. This is not about politics. This is about children, about innocence lost, about God's name being used as a weapon. She held up the photo from the box, the one of her as a child outside St. Anne's. They were watching me even then. I didn't know it. My grandmother did. That's why she buried the rosary. She was hiding it from them. Sean swallowed. Do you believe Pope Francis knew this would happen? Karoline's eyes hardened. He didn't just know. He risked everything to stop it, and he chose me not because I was powerful, but because I was free. Suddenly, a siren blared. Security flooded the room. An alert flashed across the studio monitors. Unidentified individuals outside, demanding entry, no credentials. The tension in the studio thickened. Let them wait, Karoline said. She turned to Sean. I have one more thing to show. From her coat pocket, she retrieved a small folded piece of parchment. It was old, cracked along the edges. When she opened it, a golden thread fell to the floor. This was stitched into the lining of the rosary bag. She read it aloud. When the veil tears, the light will burn what the church cannot. Protect the child. Speak the name. The hour is near. Karoline looked down, her voice quiet but clear. The child was me. But I think it could be anyone. Any child abandoned by those who claim to speak for God. Sean, uncharacteristically solemn, leaned in. What do you want the viewers to do with this, Karoline? What do we do now? She looked straight into the camera. Her eyes, for the first time, misted. Don't turn away. Don't say this is too much or it's not my business. Because if this can happen inside the walls of the Vatican, it can happen anywhere. And if we don't speak, we become part of the silence. Another buzz, another message. She lifted her phone, read it aloud. He forgave you. We won't. The audience online exploded. Hashtags appeared instantly. Truth for Francis. Shed the silence. Pray for Karoline. She smiled softly. Forgiveness doesn't come from them. It comes from the one who already knows I'm not perfect, but I will not be afraid. The control room announced they had 2 minutes left on air. Sean turned to her. Karoline, what happens when you walk off this stage? She looked past him, beyond the cameras, as if she could see the world outside. I walk into the storm, but I do it with a cross around my neck, a promise in my pocket, and a fire in my heart. And then she said it, what would become the quote on every headline the next day. The truth is not protected by the powerful. It is carried by the faithful, and we are still here. The screen faded to black. When the screen faded to black, the world did not. Phones rang, social media exploded. Within seconds, the internet was ablaze with clips, screenshots, and reactions from across the political and spiritual spectrum. Some called her a hero, others called her a liar, but no one ignored her. Backstage, Karoline sat quietly in a folding chair, the rosary wrapped around her fingers, her head bowed. She wasn't praying for safety. She was praying for strength. A producer handed her a phone. The White House is asking for a statement. She shook her head. I already gave it. Outside, the street was lined with protesters and supporters. Some held signs that read, "Expose the light," others, "False prophet." Flashing lights colored the snow, turning it at shades of red and blue. Sean Hannity stood nearby, stunned. You changed everything tonight. She turned to him, eyes calm but fierce. I didn't change anything. I just revealed what was already broken. Hours later, back at home, she tucked her son into bed. The box sat in the hallway outside his room, unopened since the broadcast. The photo of her as a child rested atop it. She kissed his forehead. I did it for you, she whispered, so that when you grow up, you won't have to carry secrets in silence. She walked to her study, opened her laptop. There was one final message waiting in her inbox. No subject line, no sender, just a line of text. The veil is torn. You are not alone. Let the flame pass to the next. The battle is not hers alone. Karoline leaned back, closed her eyes. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of something far greater. Not a war of violence, but a war of remembrance, of light, of truth. And she was ready. If this story stirred something inside you, if you believe truth still matters in this world of fear and corruption, then don't let this moment disappear. Subscribe to this channel. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe Karoline did the right thing? Share this video with someone who still believes in courage, faith, and truth. And remember, the world doesn't change through silence. It changes when ordinary people refuse to stay quiet. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, carry the light,